Hello, hi. My name is Rosenberg. I'm co-founder at Armada. And today I'm going to discuss with you artificial intelligence in the anti-money laundering practices of the maritime export industry. As co-founder of Armada, we essentially focus on anti-money laundering practices for the fintech, defense, export industries in the EU and the UAE. We provide ad hoc compliance teams for banks, digital banks, electronic money institutions, PSPs, shipping and defense companies in the EU and the UAE. We also provide licensing and regulatory framework in the EU and the UAE, in addition to due diligence services. So essentially, the topic that we're discussing today revolves around maritime fintech. So what is maritime fintech? Maritime fintech is the crossover between the fintech industry and the maritime and shipping industry in one piece. The main point of the interface lays upon the anti-money laundering practices of the export compliance of the shipping companies and the banks for the release of letters of credit within the banking industry. There are certain documents that are needed for the release of letters of credit in front of the banks, such as a bill of lading, insurance documentation, proof of authenticity, a packing list, certificate of origin, and QA documentation. The remarkable thing is how is money laundering conducted in the maritime industry? It's conducted mainly in two main aspects. A, either by fraudulent documentation, by disregarding of sanctions, but the main point of fraudulent documentation falls upon the release of letters of credit. So how do these fraudulent documentation end up once releasing the funds allocated to the letter of credit? And this is how the practice works currently when discussing anti-money laundering practices within maritime fintech. So by prevention of fraud, breach of AML and ABC rules, which is anti-bribery and corruption best practices. And how do you do that? So essentially, anti-money laundering in maritime fintech is about the transfer of liability. This transfer of liability is discussed quite widely within 6 AMLD, which is the new anti-money laundering directive within the European Union. Shipping companies would like to transfer their liability to the banks once releasing those letters of credit. But at the same time, the banks do not want to onboard this liability. By enabling the seller who sells their commodities within the maritime sector to receive the funds he was promised within a sale, either for goods or commodities, without the proper documentation, the seller is not able to receive the funds for the goods or the commodities that he sold to the buyer. And banks are relentless in their letter of credit practices, but fraud essentially occurs. So how can artificial intelligence help with the release of letters of credit? In two main aspects. The first main aspect is by the automation of the process. And once a machine learns how to detect a certain fraudulent document, automated documents generate less fraud. But in addition to that, by ensuring the authenticity of the documents, once a machine learns how to demonstrate the authenticity of the document, creates a situation in which banks are more reliant on the documents received. In addition to that, it also releases the regulatory and compliance bottleneck at the banking level once the documents are onboarded by the compliance team, and by facilitating anti-money laundering sanctions and anti-bribery and corruption processes at the banking level. Many thanks for participating within this conference and hope to see you soon on additional conferences.